Hello, hi, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone's doing okay. I'm doing fine, thanks for asking if you did. Since getting into K-pop, which was about late 2017, the first/second year of third gen K-pop, I started to notice this rhetoric by a lot of people that idols of today are less talented, have less natural/raw talent than their previous generation counterparts. I've seen this quite a lot on YouTube. People are always like, unpopular opinion, K-pop idols in second gen were 300 times better than current idols. A lot of these people who think this way, their main argument is that K-pop now groups lack imagination and talent. There is also talk about the hyper/overproduction of third and fourth generation K-pop groups, such as too much control of what they do on stage, making them feel less authentic. I wanted to bring this up because I kind of just thought of it, but I feel like it's something that a lot of people say, which is talk of copying. Second gen did it first. Third and fourth gen are copying this second gen group. To get an idea of what people are saying, I think we should read this post on Reddit. The real reason second gen groups were better. Okay, so here we go. I am not an old K-pop stan, so I discovered K-pop through groups like BTS, Blackpink, and Red Velvet. However, I then began to discover groups like Girls' Generation and 2NE1. Among those and many more groups, I realized that the second generation has a spark that the current K-pop groups seem to lack. I don't think that it's that they are more talented per se, but that these people actually had passion for the art of performance. I feel like in second gen, the motto was, look for talent, prodigies, and stars, and we will make them pretty through diet and plastic surgery. Now, we find untalented or average kids who are pretty and make them talented. The issue with that is that most of these kids don't have the natural talent or passion to back up their training. So the one thing I will say about this post is that they say it's not about talent per se, but then they do say that in the second gen, they feel as if they look for talent and now they look for untalented people who are pretty. So even though this person says that they aren't looking at talent, they kind of are because they contradicted themselves in the next sentence. The one thing I really disagree about is that they're saying about the passion to back up their training. I think that that's quite wrong because it's hard to say that there's only a couple groups or maybe one or two groups that really have a passion for performing and music. Why would they spend their time to audition and to try and become in a group and try to become a singer if they don't have the spark or the passion for it in the first place? Overall, I think there is a difference between second and third gen. Second gen, there were less active companies than there are now, and as K-pop has become more globalized, I think there's a larger market for K-pop. There's more people consuming K-pop and more people getting into it around the world, and thus more companies and more artists will be popping up. For me, it feels like you are comparing a new group from a small company to Girls' Generation or 2NE1 when they've had their full career to someone who has just debuted, or from a very small company with a lack of financial backing. It doesn't really make sense to do that. One argument that was used in this post, which was that idols today don't really have a passion for what they do. And I've seen a lot of YouTubers mention about how a lot of idols seem that they're very overproduced, which is very much the same thing, that everything they do is very calculated and very perfected, and they feel like they don't have any authenticity anymore. The companies do everything for the artist and the artist has no say. In this argument, I kind of understand both sides, but if I'm honest, I feel like it's more on the wrong than the right side, but I'll explain both points. So the problem with this kind of whole argument that everything is so hyper-produced and overdone now, and there's no authenticity in K-pop anymore, and second-gen groups have so much more stage presence, is that people are acting like all second-gen groups were self-produced, who could just dance and sing. Second-gen artists were as controlled as current-gen artists. There is not much difference in the way they're being controlled. Companies in the second-gen still acted the same, training them for long periods of time, building their concept, choosing everything for them, paying for all their promotions, making all their songs for them, making the dances for them. It hasn't really changed. Acting like second gen was so much different is a bit stupid because in some ways it was kind of worse for second gen groups. People were really like messed about during that time when this whole kind of thing where the company does everything for you really started. And because of the backlash of the treatment of those idols in the second gen, there are more laws in place now to protect third and fourth gen. However, this isn't to say that K-pop idols now have it easy in any way, shape or form, because that is just not true. But at the same time, acting like second gen was this kind of grassroots generation where everything was good and idols were completely autonomous with their careers and could do anything they want, like more of let's say, an artist in England. It's just really not true. The one thing I will say though is that K-pop today is very produced, like it was in second generation. But I think in the second generation it was more slightly hidden. In this generation, they're open with how hyper produced it is. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, because I don't think being overly produced is a bad thing. I feel like with K-pop now, there's more of an emphasis on perfection than rawness. I think there's always been kind of an emphasis of being perfect, but there was a bit more rawness in second gen, and I will say that. Having more perfection isn't a bad thing at all. I think everything now is very perfected, from choreographies, the stages, promotion periods, such as, everyone kind of does similar things, like they go on Inkigayo, Music Bank, they do like Studio Tune or relay dances. Easiest way to put it, K-pop is glossier now, it's sugar-coated now, and companies want their idols to be perfect at what they're doing, and they want them to perform the choreographies exactly how it's meant to. That is just the way the industry is moving. Always in second gen, you could tell that it was produced because they had the dance practices, they had the stages, but it was still more of in its kind of infancy, and it's kind of more developed now in third and fourth gen groups. I think K-pop has always been moving in this direction, and because it moved in this direction, I think it opened the doors for K-pop to be seen all around the world. Within the third and current generation of groups, K-pop has really established its place in the global music industry and has found a unique standing compared to other music industries around the world. Because when you see K-pop, you think of choreographies, staging, such as, a whole concept around this one song, promotional period. I think there is something so unique about K-pop because of the way it has been hyper-produced like this way, and they're not really hiding it. It's found its own unique place in the music industry, which has really benefited K-pop in an amazing way. They're not doing that in America. Always the way it was naturally progressing. Why does that have to be a negative? I want to move on to the point now about third and fourth gen copying second gen groups. I have seen this from a couple of YouTubers. I think it's just such a stupid take. YouTubers and fans in general kind of accusing K-pop groups, current ones, of copying second gen. If we're going to do the most obvious example, Blackpink and 2NE1. When Blackpink debuted for a couple years, basically until now, all I really ever saw about Blackpink was people trying to diminish their achievements and going that they're copying 2NE1, 2NE1 are better, 2NE1 did this. And when Blackpink do something that they achieved, they're like, oh, if 2NE1 was here. And I'm just thinking, why are you attacking them to try and make the other group look better? They kind of bring up points, low-key baseless, and don't take into fact about how the industry has changed over time. You're not gonna go and compare an artist from the 80s to, let's say, BB Rexha and be like, if this artist was in this generation, they would have done so much better than BB Rexha. Or they're like, oh, she uses autotune not like these people in the 80s. It's like, well, everyone does. It's the way the industry has moved. It's the way music production has moved. Why are you bringing this up? It doesn't make sense. Compare people to other people of that generation. Compare it to someone of another generation of artists. When something so fundamental, such as the industry, has moved and changed, is kind of weird and doesn't really make sense, because you can bring up comparisons, but at the same time, you don't know what they would be like if they were in this generation. The one thing about the Blackpink and 2NE1 thing, I understand that they are under the same company, but they aren't the same group at all. I always see like people trash talking Blackpink and saying 2NE1 did it first, 2NE1 did it better. I don't get it, because the one thing I see that's similar to Blackpink is they have 4 girls which have similar roles. So if we take in CL, Jennie, kind of leader, Minzy, amazing dancer, which is like the same thing as Lisa. Jisoo, kind of the visual, really good vocalist, I guess would be like Dara. Rose and Pakbom for unique vocalist. The only thing that's very similar to them is the amount of girls and that the roles they take up in the group. But apart from that, then nothing is really the same. But you won't see people comparing, I don't know, another group in K-pop that maybe has 4 or 5 members that are girls that have similar roles. Maybe has like a unique vocalist, a main dancer, a kind of leader who's like a rapper and has a visual. You won't see people comparing them to 2NE1, but you'll see them comparing Blackpink to 2NE1. Blackpink are very different to 2NE1 in many ways. The song style is different, concepts are different. They share the kind of umbrella of girl crush, but that's kind of where it ends. They do have kind of strong styles, both groups, but at the same time, 2NE1 do it in a different way to what Blackpink have done it. This is my opinion, please correct me if you think I'm wrong. Blackpink kind of have more of a feminine approach to it, basically focusing on that kind of aspect of Blackpink, pink of girly, femininity, praising and celebrating femininity. And then obviously the black part, which is more like the hard-hitting, like boss bitch kind of thing. 2NE1 had this girl crush concept. The songs that they did weren't always like super girl crushy. It Hurts or Missing You, Gotta Be You aren't like super girl crushy. They fit 2NE1. Blackpink have stuck to their concept, very calculated in the way they've done it. Songs like Do 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 Do, Kill This Love, Boombayah, which are very hard hitting, very, you know, Blackpink songs. But they also have songs like Lovesick Girls, songs like Stay. Audiences are so different to 2NE1 and Blackpink. This is kind of coming more like ranty instead of more structured, how I was hoping it would. I have a script in front of me because I've been holding this in for a while and because it's annoying. It's just annoying. Fans are invested in current K-pop, such as, you know, the choreography, the stages. We want to see them do their dances on stage. That's as fans what we want to see. So when I see comments about Blackpink are doing the exact same choreography on each of their stages, that's what they're meant to do. That's their job. Just because they don't change stuff up all the time doesn't mean that they are bad performers. I see people comparing 2NE1 and Blackpink for doing this, but I don't see you comparing all the other current K-pop groups who do the exact same thing. Because Blackpink are the only ones who just perform their dances on stage. Most current K-pop groups literally do the same. On music shows, stages are very set in stone, like design, intro, choreography, performance, because it's for TV. With an audience at like a live concert show, you are there to perform in front of the audience. You are not there to perform in front of the cameras. On these stages such as Inkigayo and Music Bank, idols know at what points cameras are going to be focusing on them and where they will be. Let's say like Blackpink. So if they were performing their choreography and then they wanted to do something different, so Jennie kind of just went all the way to the other side of the stage and was like hyping up the audience. The camera would be focusing on here because that camera is set, and it'll be on Lisa instead of Jennie, and then they'll be like, well, where is she? It's her lines. There is an audience of like 100 people there, and of course they're there to watch the groups perform and support them, but at the same time there's such a larger audience watching it on their computers or on their TV. They're there to captivate that audience, not just the people that are in front of them. And people might say, well, that's not authentic. Well, at the same time, you have to think of it in this way. Say I'm performing and I'm not like paying any attention to the camera, just looking down the audience. You're not going to get a connection with me. You're not going to get my performance. You're not going to understand my performance. You'll be less invested. Of course they're going to be having something structured so they know where the cameras are, they know when to perform, they know when to do the facials. I think there is such an emphasis on choreography now in K-pop and the performance of the choreography. Who cares if their hand movements like going like this or going like that is produced by the choreography? Why does it matter? And they do it and they look natural. I always feel though that this kind of idea is always perpetuated towards women, and it's mainly perpetuated towards Blackpink. I always see this kind of criticism towards women and never towards like the men in K-pop. I see it more as like you're coming for Blackpink, mainly Blackpink, for doing something that every other K-pop group does all the time. The whole idea that they don't have much stage presence, really kind of dumb. You look at Blackpink on their live concerts, even Coachella, you can tell that they have so much stage presence and they can engage an audience really easily. I think there is just a difference for when it comes to something like Studio Choom and Inkigayo versus Coachella or a concert. Moving on to music and music production. Music in general has shifted a lot in the past decade, which I seem to mention in every single video of mine. Music globally sounds more polished and sugar-coated than ever before, and with K-pop, which has some of the best sound engineering and mixing I've literally ever heard. But it is just the way that music has been going in for the past 20 years. The thing is, music works in trends. Over time, a lot of pop music ends up becoming outdated, or music just sounds more outdated because obviously people move with those trends. If you listen from something from 2007, you can still like the song, but you can also tell it wouldn't do as well today if you just released it as it is today. When people try and say they're less talented is what I've said in my previous video, which is about auto-tune or just tuning in general. Tuning does not make someone who is tone deaf sound like Mariah Carey. People tune vocals either for stylistic effect, for example BTS, or to really sugarcoat things and make vocals sound perfect and sit so nicely in a mix. If you don't tune the vocals, they don't sit as nicely in that mix. But because there is tuning now, doesn't mean they aren't talented. You have a terrible tone and your pitch is so off, you're gonna sound bad no matter what. Second gen idols use tuning in both of those ways I described. Was it used less? Absolutely. I know a lot of 2NE1 songs like It Hurts or Park Bom's You and I. They have little to no tuning. When I was listening to those songs recently in the car with my dad, he was like, oh, are these the final songs? I was like, yeah, of course they are. And he was like, they sound more like demos to me. He's not saying that as a shady or mean way to the artist. Back then, it wouldn't sound like demos. But I feel like now, because of the way music production has shifted, it doesn't stand as much today, because obviously the trend now is for music to sound in this particular sugar-coated, perfected way. You could say the same thing about songs in the 80s, where, oh, they were really off on this note, but this was in the final version, because they didn't have that software then. They didn't have the means to do it. Obviously, they had the means to do it in second generation K-pop. People are gonna follow those trends and are gonna try and stay to the modern music production. Basically saying like groups using auto-tune shows that they're not as talented as previous generations. They used it, and also it's trendier to use it now, so it makes sense that they use it. To wrap this up, I think a lot of people who grew up in a certain generation of music will always reminisce and keep something like that close to their heart because they grew up with it and it has their fondest memories with it. And so you're going to be biased towards it. You need to acknowledge your bias instead of being like, groups now are so much worse, because it's just not true. Trying not to diminish other people's achievements or careers because you like one generation more over the other. I don't like it when people complain that one generation isn't like the other, because they aren't the same thing. They're different generations. They're not going to be the exact same thing. If you miss that generation so much, go back and listen to that generation. Thank you for watching this video. I feel like this... I kind of got into more of a like ranty, just talking a lot mood. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I think I'm just kind of annoyed when people say these kind of things, and it is kind of just a way to be like, oh, these artists are bad because they're not like this artist. And it's like, well, they're not the same artist. Yeah. Bye. Bye.